people do not buy the best products and services. They buy the ones they can understand the fastest. They do not follow the best leaders. They follow the leaders that they can understand the fastest.
Hello, everyone, and sorry for the delay. We had some technical difficulties, but we are here now, and we are so excited. I am particularly very excited because I'm welcoming none other than Donald Miller, who is the founder and CEO of StoryBrand and also a New York Times bestselling author. And I would say I've had the privilege, actually, Donald, you don't know that, but I've had the privilege of actually listening to you live, and it was one of the most informing talks that I've ever listened to. So I am personally very excited for this masterclass, where we will address principles on how storytelling can empower your business growth. So a big welcome to you, Donald, and thank you for being with us there in Nashville, Tennessee. Please, everyone, let us know where you're tuning in from around the world. We'll be happy to see how many countries that we have with us today. Just to briefly outline the format before I give the word to you, Donald. We have about an hour worth of content here. It will be pretty much the same format as usually. You can write any questions you want in the Q&A section. Me and Don will try and address as many of them as possible right after his presentation. And also, as always, you're more than welcome to just give your opinion in the chat. We'd love to see what you think about customer journeys, marketing initiatives, and so forth. But I think without further ado, and because we are a little over time, I just want to say, again, thank you so much for being here. We have much content in store for you guys. So I want to give the word to you and say welcome, Donald.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me. Well, the reason we're doing this masterclass, or the reason I'm speaking to you today, is I think we are all struggling with a similar problem. And the similar problem is this: our message is so confusing that nobody really knows why they should engage our products, our brand, our ideas. And I want to talk to you about how we can clarify our message so that more people will engage in whatever it is that we are working on. You know, I help a lot of companies, several thousand companies a year, clarify their message so their marketing works great. And the reality is that most marketing is a complete waste of money. It is just bad news. I'm not sure if you can see my slides there. Yeah, you got them. But the reason is the words that we're using in that marketing don't work. When we think of marketing, we tend to think of our logo, we think of our brand colors, we think of the mood that our brand exhibits. But I would argue that none of that is as important as the words that we use when we talk about our products, our services, or our initiatives. The reality is people buy products after they read or hear words that make them want to buy products. And so what I want to offer you today is a messaging system that by the time we're done in about 30 minutes, and certainly after our Q&A after that, you will have a framework that you can use to create clear messaging so that people will engage whatever it is that your initiative is. All right, so if you want to grab a pen or a pencil, a piece of paper, make sure you take some notes, and then I'll clarify some of the information at the end with a Q&A. The first thing that we want to talk about is what the brain is doing, what a human brain is doing when we're talking to that person. What are they thinking about? And there are really two things that the human brain is tasked with. It's always doing these things. The first job of the human brain is to keep you alive and on the planet. It is trying to help you survive and thrive. And so the brain is always scouring for data, for information that will help it survive or thrive. What this means is it's always filtering out information. It's always saying, I don't need that information. I do need this information. If our brain wasn't able to delineate between information we need to survive and information we do not need to survive, our lives would be completely unmanageable. You would have walked into a coffee shop this morning, bought a pound of coffee, stared at it, wondered where it was packaged, what the packaging is made of. 3 hours later, you would be still staring at that pound of coffee, trying to get all the information about it that you can. because your brain doesn't have the mechanism that says, I don't need to know this information in order to survive. I just need to drink the coffee and move on and get back to work. Our brain is a finely tuned instrument at filtering out information. I'll say it a different way. Our brain is really good at ignoring ideas that don't help us survive. And it's really good at accepting ideas that do help us survive. So what does this mean for you and me and the way that we are trying to change the world or impact the world? It means this: we have to associate our products and services with the survival of our customers, or they will tune us out. That is, whatever it is that you're selling or whatever idea you have to so closely associate it with the survival of whoever's listening to you that they say, I need that information. Because if you don't, they're going to say, I'm ignoring that information so that I can find information that I need in order to survive. That's rule number one. We want to associate our products and services with the survival of our customer. Second, the brain is always trying to conserve calories. You know, it takes calories to process information. And on an average day, the brain burns between 600 and 800 calories. It's burning energy. It's burning glucose as it processes information. In fact, it's the number one organ in your body that burns calories. It's not your big calf muscles or your giant bicep muscles. It's your brain. That's what's actually burning the most calories every day. And it's a problem if your brain spends too much time burning calories on information that doesn't help it survive, then it's exposed. It's under threat. So the brain wants to only engage information that will help it survive, and it wants to do so in such a simple way that it doesn't have to burn any calories. What it does when you ask the brain to burn calories on information it doesn't need is the brain actually shuts down and you start to daydream. You start to daydream. And the average person, you included, daydreams about 30% of the time. That's a lot. And daydreaming is actually a survival mechanism. Daydreaming says, there's nothing here that I need to know in order to survive, so I'm just going to let my mind wander. Sadly, when we don't present a message about our products, services, or initiatives that are associated with our customers' survival, and do so in such simple language, they don't have to burn any calories to understand it, we run a high risk of being ignored. So I'm going to repeat that, and if you will, would you write that down? The key is associate your products, services, or initiatives with the survival of your audience, and do so with such simple language, nobody has to burn any calories to understand it. That's the key to having an impact. You know, here in the States, I'm sure you're aware that we're in a contentious election. We have a lot of people who don't like this president. But what this president does that other candidates have not been able to do is communicate in a way that is extremely clear. An 8-year-old could understand it. If I said to you, what does Joe Biden want to do for America? You wouldn't know. And I want to tell you, here in the United States, we also don't know. But if you say, what does Donald Trump want to do? Everybody can say, make America great again. So there are a lot of people who actually don't like the president, but they're going to vote for him because he's clearly communicated an offer. And they're not going to vote for the other guy because they don't actually know what they're going to get. It hasn't been communicated in a way that is clear, easy to understand, and simple. That brings me to a really important point. People do not buy the best products and services. They buy the ones they can understand the fastest. They do not follow the best leaders. They follow the leaders that they can understand the fastest. So you and I are going to need a messaging framework to help us simplify our message, and then we need to be disciplined enough to stick with that messaging framework and repeat those talking points and sound bites over and over until people understand what it is that we offer. And I'm going to give you a way to do that. The human brain is working overtime all the time. It's as though the people you're talking to are on a treadmill. Whenever you're talking to an audience like I'm talking to you, your brain is on a treadmill. You are burning calories. And you're not going to stay on that treadmill for very long because you're going to get tired. And so what I need to do is slowly roll out information that helps you survive. That's the key to being a good communicator. In fact, if you try to give too much information to an audience, it's the equivalent of burdening them or overloading them. I think every point that you make about your initiative, about your product, it's like a bowling ball. Here in America, I don't know if you play over there, we've got these 8-pound bowling balls and you roll them down a lane and you knock down some 10s. They're really heavy. And if I try to hand an audience too many bowling balls, if I try to hand them 1 point, then a second point, then a third point, it's too much for an audience. And by the time I try to hand them a fourth idea, they drop everything. You know, when I go to some of your websites and look at the initiatives that you care about, you are speaking so elusively that I can't figure out what you want me to understand. Some of you are using inside language. That's like taking oil or Vaseline and putting it on that bowling ball and throwing it to you. You're going to drop it. So we want really clear, easy words to understand that we can speak slowly so that everybody follows us. And listen, everybody attracted to this conference or who attended this conference, every single person is extremely intelligent. And it sounds like I'm saying, I want you to put the cookies on a really low shelf and speak to people like they're a second grader, like they're a child. And I want to tell you, that's exactly what I think you should do because they're so busy and there's so much going on. You know, the average American, I'm not sure where you are, but the average American encounters 3,000 commercial messages a day. 3,000 commercial messages a day. They are bombarded with information. And what they are going to remember are those slowly spoken sound bites that engage them and hook them and cause their mind to lean forward rather than to lean back. What we don't want to do is confuse. We have a mantra at my office, and it's this: if you confuse, you'll lose. And we don't want to confuse. So what do we need to do? Well, we're going to use a tool to help us engage people, and the tool is story. Story is a sense-making device. Story causes people to pay attention. In fact, earlier I told you that 30% of the time, the people you're talking to are daydreaming, unless they're engaged in a story. When you start a story, they stop daydreaming and they lean in. If I said to you, yesterday my cousin and I got on motorcycles and we tried to jump over a 50-foot ditch, you're wondering what happened. You're not daydreaming, you're paying attention. And so, by the way, I didn't try to jump over a 50-foot ditch. I'm just using that as an example. But you're paying attention because I've opened a story loop, a story question. Did you get across the ditch? What happened to your cousin? Why were you guys on motorcycles? There's a story question. We want to be sure to do that. So I want to teach you how story structure works. The reality is story is formulaic. It's very formulaic. And there are really about 7 story formulas that get used in theaters every year. You're really only seeing one of 7 movies. These stories, structures, and formulas have been passed down for generations, probably since Aristotle wrote his book called Poetics. And we've been improving upon them, testing them at the box office, and seeing how they engage an audience. I want to show you 7 plot points that happen in a story that captivates an audience. And I want to explain how if you use those plot points as business principles, more people will pay attention to you. All right, so here is the story structure that we're going to look at. There are basically 7 things that happen in every movie. The first thing that happens is a character shows up on screen. And we want to define exactly what that character wants. We know that that character wants to marry the girl. The character wants to run the marathon and win the Olympic gold medal. The character wants to disarm the bomb. It must be clearly communicated what the character wants. Now, amateur storytellers, amateur screenwriters make some of the same mistakes that people in business make. They do one of two things when it comes to defining what the character wants. They either are too elusive, that is, it's a very vague and slippery thing what the character wants. I can't figure it out. If I were to ask you to skip today's session and let's go see a movie, it's about a guy who's looking for fulfillment. You would probably not be interested because that's very elusive. I don't know what a guy looking for fulfillment, I can't figure out what that is. I'm having to burn a ton of calories and I don't know how that's going to entertain me. I'm going to just start daydreaming. I'm going to stop paying attention to you. And yet you and I, when we build a website, we'll have some tagline, some motto for our company that says something like this: trust is the commodity we exchange. Now think about that. Trust is the commodity we exchange. It sounds so fancy. It sounds so thoughtful, but it means absolutely nothing. In fact, we could probably go to an advertising agency and they would charge us $250,000 to come back with the tagline, trust is the commodity we exchange. And I want to argue that we just paid them $250,000 to confuse people and lose us money. Many of you have done that. It's a shame. We can't be elusive or vague. Another problem is that if we say too many things or define too many things that the customer wants, we confuse them as well. If we go to a movie and we know that Jason Bourne wants to know who he is and he wants to lose 30 pounds and he'd like to marry the girl and he's thinking about adopting a cat, we have too many plot points in that movie. We will lose the audience. So as a company, as an organization, as a person of impact, as a policymaker, you need to define one thing that you offer. Now, it can be what we call an umbrella offering so that many things can fit under the umbrella of that offering. Make America Great Again, you can put tax reform, immigration reform, education reform, all under Make America Great Again, but you're really only offering one thing. So it's up to you to figure out what that umbrella offering is. Be careful, because if it sounds vague, allowing you to fit a bunch of stuff under it, you're back to problem number one. You're too elusive. So define something that your stakeholder, your company, or your potential customers, define something that they want and become known for that one thing. Last year, I was in Finland. I was over there with you guys, and I spoke to several thousand business leaders. I asked them, what does Donald Trump want to do with America? And they all said, make America great again. Why were they able to know that? Because he led his audience through an exercise in memorization where they memorized what he wanted them to memorize. And when it came to coming to the polls, the voting machines, they voted for what they remembered. It's important for you to just do the same thing. Define something that your company offers. Make it interesting, make it memorable. Be able to speak and communicate that in very brief language and repeat it over and over until all of your potential customers have it memorized. And what you'll see then is rapid growth in revenue, because people know what you offer. And if they need it, they will buy it from you. We have not confused them. The next thing that has to happen in a story is there has to be a problem. A problem shows up on screen. Something challenges the hero so the hero doesn't get what they want. The reason there has to be a problem in the story is because the problem is what we call the hook. The problem makes you interested in the story. Without a problem, you would never be interested in a story. If you and I went to a movie and there was a man on a bus and he saw a beautiful woman across the bus, at the back of the bus, and he walked up to her and he said, "You're very beautiful. I'd like to buy you a cup of coffee or a cup of tea and get to know you." And she said, "Well, that sounds great. I have a little time today." They go and they have coffee. They fall in love. That night, they call both their parents. They say, you have to meet the parents of this person that I've met. I'm in love. The parents meet. They say, this is the greatest couple ever. And the next day, there's a wedding, and they get married. And then you roll the credits on the movie. You have the most boring movie ever made because there was no problem. What we have to do is write the movie in such a way that the character sees the girl. He tries to get to her in the back of the bus, but somebody stops him to start a conversation. He doesn't want to be rude. She gets off the bus at the bus stop. He goes to the next bus stop. He gets off the bus stop. He runs back to try to find her. When he gets there, she's getting into a cab. And then 2 days later, he sees her at a bar. And he says, I can't believe it. It's the girl of my dreams. He goes up to her, and she is suddenly whisked away by security. Turns out she's a Saudi princess. He thinks it's over. I'll never see her. There's a chasm between she and I. We could never even be in the same room until his roommate says, wait, I have press credentials. I'm a journalist. She's doing a press conference tomorrow. Use my credentials and pretend you're me. You'll be in the room. You see how see this? That's a movie. What is it? It's somebody who wants something and can't get it. It's somebody who's won something and is being punished and challenged in order to accomplish that. It's the conflict that makes the movie interesting. What is our business paradigm shift from this point in ancient storytelling? The business paradigm shift is this. You need to talk about your customers' problems, or they will not be interested in your product. The only reason that people are going to your website, walking through the door of your retail establishment, calling your sales reps back, is because they're trying to solve a problem. I really want you to understand this. What sales actually is us explaining to our customers how our product can solve their problem. Here's our customer, and they have a problem. Here's us, we have a product. When in your customer's mind, the synapses fire between the problem and our product, when they realize, wait a second, that's a solution to my problem. The second that those synapses fire and they make that mental connection between their problem and your product, the second that happens is the second they begin the path to buying that product. It's the first step. So what does this mean? This means we have to consistently talk about our customers' problems and position our products as a solution to that problem. When you stop talking about your customers' problems, they will stop paying attention to you. So let me ask you this. If I go to your website and I print off your website and I take a red pen and I circle every time you're talking about your customers' problems, would there be circles all over that page? If there are not, your message is not interesting. If we change that and begin to talk about how you understand the frustration of X, you feel the pain of people who struggle with X, you no longer have to deal with X, and I add that language to your website, your revenue will go up. Okay, so we've got now a character, a customer who wants something and is experiencing pain. It's time for us to enter into their story as the guide. The next thing that happens in the story is a character shows up on screen to help the hero win the day. Obi-Wan Kenobi shows up for Luke Skywalker. Yoda shows up for Luke Skywalker. Haymitch shows up for Katniss in the Hunger Games. Lionel, the drama teacher, shows up for King George in the King's Speech. Mr. Miyagi shows up for Daniel in The Karate Kid, one of my favorite movies from my childhood. Somebody shows up to help the hero win the day. What's the business shift there? Well, the business idea is this: never play the hero in the story. Always play the guide. The guide exists to help the hero win the day. Why don't we want to play the hero in the story? Why don't we want to make the story about us? We don't want to make the story about us for two reasons. One is The hero is actually a weak character in the story. They are afraid, ill-equipped, unwilling to take action, and in desperate need of help. Is that how you want to position yourself or your brand? It's not. You want to position your brand like the guide. The guide is a strong character. They have already tackled and conquered the problem that the hero has, and they are now helping the hero win the day. That's the first reason you don't want to position yourself as the hero, because they are weak. The second position is because when you position yourself as the hero, you actually remove yourself from your customer's story. If your customer is a hero and you are also a hero, then you are heroes in two separate stories. If your customer is a hero and you position yourself as a guide to help the hero win the day, you have effectively entered into their story. So to position yourself as the hero, there's two things, or the guide, there's two things you want to do. You want to demonstrate empathy. That is, I care about your pain. I feel your pain. And you also want to demonstrate authority, or really competency. I feel your pain and I can get you out. Our customers struggle with X, but we've helped thousands of people overcome that struggle, and we can help you too. That message endears customers and causes them to trust and follow you. So again, if I printed out your website or printed out a speech, a presentation that you were about to give, could I circle places where you are empathizing with the audience's pain? And could I circle places where you are demonstrating a competency to help them overcome that challenge or that pain? If I can find those in your message, then you are positioning yourself as a guide and not as a hero. This is critical. You know, Hillary Clinton lost an election to Donald Trump. She was the front runner by far. She should have won it. Her campaign message was this: I'm with her. I'm with her versus Make America Great Again. Make America Great Again is a climactic scene in a story. It's a place that we can head. I'm with her is somebody positioning themselves as the hero, which makes them look weak and outside of my story. That's why she lost the election. There were some other reasons, but she outspent the competition. She had more qualifications to be president, but she messed up the message. If she would have said, she's with us, rather than I'm with her, she would have made the voter the hero and herself the guide. Instead, she said, I'm with her, and the voter said, oh, you're a hero in a story. We are also heroes in a story. I hope your story works out, but I'm not engaged enough to go to the polls and actually vote for you because I have something else going on. It is critical that in your policy presentations, in your product sales, in your branding, you position yourself as a caring and competent guide. Next, we actually want to give our customers or our stakeholders a plan that they can use to move forward. We don't just want to say, vote for me or buy my product. That's too big of a risk for them. They need some sort of simple plan they can follow. A 3-step plan. 1, we will analyze your goals together. 2, I'll print a custom report that you can use. 3, if you want me to hold your hand and you want to take us on as a client, then, or as a vendor or service, then we will hold your hand and we can work together. If I met 2 financial advisors at a cocktail party, and I asked one of them, what do you do? They said, well, I'm a financial advisor. The market is very volatile right now. It's very hard to predict. I've got a strategy, though, that I think I can help you make a lot of money. You want to meet next Thursday, will you bring your checkbook? I'm probably not going to take that meeting. But if I met a financial advisor who did the exact same thing, and they said, the market is really volatile right now, I'd love to get together and help you analyze your dreams and goals, and then I'll give you a free custom strategy report that I think reflects what you should do with your money. And then if you ever wanted to work together, I could help you execute that strategy. I'm probably going to choose the second financial advisor over the first, because the second financial advisor gave me a plan, a 3-step plan that kept me from being confused about how this will work. I'm telling you, even if you sell automobiles, vehicles, if instead of saying, come down and buy this car, you say, listen, here's a really safe way to do this. Come test drive the car, talk it over with one of our sales reps, and take it home if you think it's the right car for you. Those 3 steps remove the fog and confusion about how we can work together. And they give me safe baby steps that I can take in order to solve my problem. And that's what you want to do. The next thing you want to do is you want to challenge your customer to take action. It's time to actually say, I want you to buy my product. I want you to adapt my policy. I want you to vote for me. We have to make a clear call to action. You know, here in the States, it frustrates me when I see a website, I look at it and it says things like learn more or get started. In my opinion, those are passive calls to action. Your call to action should say buy now or schedule an appointment. What your customer needs is something to accept or reject. If I accept this product and I buy it, my problems will be solved. And if I don't, they won't. But that has to be really clear. You know, it's kind of like back when we were dating, before I was married. If I went up to a girl and said, I really like coffee. Do you like coffee? Do you like tea? Could we get together and drink tea? She's wondering, I don't understand what you're asking. But if I say, it's been really nice talking to you. Can I take you on a date sometime? I'd love to take you out on a date. She now has something she can accept or reject. Now, she may reject that, but she also may accept it. And what you will find is when you actually are a little more strong, a little more clear and authentic in your calls to action, yes, more people will reject that call to action, but more people will also accept it, and your revenue will increase. There are 2 more things before we go to question and answer that you've got to get in your messaging strategy. The first is success, and the second is failure. We need to show people what's at stake if they do or do not buy our product or service. What can be won or lost if I do not adapt the policy that you are recommending? These are the stakes in the story, and the stakes make the story interesting. If Liam Neeson's daughter is kidnapped by terrorists in the movie, and in 10 minutes we find out that it wasn't terrorists, it was just a college prank, and that she's okay, and that she still wants her father to come over to London to do some shopping on the West End and talk about graduate school. And in the 90 minutes remaining in that movie, we watch her as she tries on clothes and they all fit and they're all on sale, and it's very clear she's going to Dartmouth. We have removed the stakes from the movie, and the movie is not interesting. So if I print out your website and I take a red pen and I circle every time you give me a vision of what my future looks like if I buy your product, and I circle every time you give me a vision of the horrible thing that will happen to me if I do not buy your product or service, is that interesting? Is it compelling? It is, because you've put stakes in the story. So let's walk through the questions that you've got to ask of yourself regarding your brand message. The first question is this: have you defined something that the customer wants? The next is, have you defined a problem that the customer is facing? Have you positioned yourself as a guide? Have you given your customer a plan? Have you called them to action, and are your calls to action clear? Have you given your customer a vision of the success they can experience? And have you given your customer a vision of the failure they will experience if they do not buy your product or service? I'm going to ask that you leave that on the screen for a second, because some people might want to pick up their phone and take a picture of it. Feel free. I want you to have these 7 messages clear and defined. And then I want them to show up in your marketing collateral, in your elevator pitches, in your speeches, in the emails that you send out, in the sales scripts that your sales reps use. These are the questions that you want to answer. And if you don't, you'll confuse your audience. And again, if you confuse, you will lose. Okay? Hopefully that was helpful to all of you. And I'd love to take some questions, because I know you've got questions, and hopefully I can answer some of them.
Donald, thank you so much. I saw one of the comments there. We received many comments, and I should say for your sake, Donald, that many of them are very, very positive. And I, for once, was really focused on trying to write down a lot of notes myself. And I even saw one comment that says the host needs to show more emotions. Well, I was really focused. I was really listening. I was captivated. So I'm sorry about that. But I just had to really pay attention here. So Donald, thank you so for that. I think it was actually when I just heard your talk right here, right now, that I realized why it was that your talk, when I heard it live, was so captivating. I guess it was because it was very, very simple. I understood exactly what you were saying. I understood exactly what you meant. I once heard from one of my mentors that there's a saying which is, I didn't have time to write a short story, so I wrote a long one.
Yes.
Sort of the same thing, right? Like you're not clear enough on what it is you'll actually say or present, right? And then it goes off topic. I rushed a bit into to this webinar because we had some technical difficulties. So I completely forgot to mention that some of you may know that we just moved our President Summit conference to June, obviously due to the global pandemic. And we opened up for ticket sales the past couple of weeks, only exclusively here in the webinars. And it has been tremendous. The support has been absolutely overwhelming. So we, of course, wanted to do the same thing here today and also offer your book, Donald, the New York Times bestseller, with that ticket. And I actually got all nervous when I was sitting here because you taught me so much on how to pitch things. So I was like, oh, do we have too many bowling balls? Is this simple enough? And so forth, right? So I'll try to communicate this offer as easily as possible, and you'll let me know how I did. But there's really no problem, I don't think. I was thinking through the story. There's no problem. I'm not sure that I'm letting you guys be the hero here, but the essence, at least, is that we want to welcome you at the President's Summit. You'll get a discount, 25%. We'll include Donald's book as well, a fantastic book if you haven't read it. And as Donald was mentioned, you'll see many more great speakers like Donald, and you'll meet a lot of fantastic people. So your revenue will increase. And without putting too much into it, I'll also say you'll get a great experience. I hope those two things are enough, Donald, but I'll stop it there and I'll leave it on.
I think they're great, and I think your visual is extremely clear. I think you're doing a great job.
Okay, thank you.
I wish I could be there with you guys.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Maybe we can work it out. It's in June, so hopefully things have cleared up a bit by then in terms of travel, and so I'd love to welcome you. But anyway, yeah, you can let us know in the chat if you want it there. Somebody from my team will contact you afterwards. We'll leave it on only as long as the masterclass lasts, so only like 15 minutes or so. But yeah, hope to see many of you guys. But on to the much more important things, because we've received a ton of questions, Donald. And I want to ask you just out of curiosity first, because I've read some of the work that you've done and studied some of your research, so to say. And I know you have this 7-part journey in terms of the customers. You mentioned some of these points here. What part of the journey do you see companies struggle with the most?
Well, really it's the whole 7-part framework is what they struggle with. But what that really means is clarity. They struggle with clarity, and they're just not communicating super clearly about what they offer. And the problem really is inside language. And we assume that the people that we're talking to know what we know. We assume that I've got a puppy here in the room with me. If you hear some jingling, that's the puppy. What a beautiful time COVID has entered us into. But, here, hold on, you can see her. Her name is June Carter. I don't know if she's on camera or not. Well, anyway, she's really cute.
She might be a bit, yeah.
Coming in to be petted. So, yeah, it's really about that clarity. It's about not fully making sure that we're speaking from the audience's perspective. And one test that everybody listening can really do, take out your website. Your website is usually a clearinghouse of information about your company. Take that website and sit down with maybe an acquaintance or even a stranger if they would be willing to give you their time. And give them about 15 seconds to look at that website. 15 seconds. Then close it and say, can I ask you 3 questions? What do I offer? How will it make your life better? And what do you need to do to buy it? What do I offer? How will it make your life better? And what do you need to do to buy it? If they cannot answer those 3 questions, having looked at your website for 15 seconds, your message is not clear and it needs some work. And most people, they might be able to answer 1 or 2 of those things, but certainly not all 3. And so that's a really great test. But I would say the number one thing that most people struggle with is they have really not clarified their message. And I'll also warn you about this. You can go to a marketing firm, an advertising firm, a creative agency, and give them $1 million. And they will take that $1 million and come up with a messaging campaign that does not answer those 3 questions. I almost think it's criminal negligence to charge somebody $1 million and not get them a $10 million return, much less charge you $1 million and lose you $5 million in the marketplace to your competitor who has an inferior product but communicates more clearly. I just don't want to see that happen anymore.
I completely agree and understand to that point. And I think with all the messaging that's just going on right now, it's becoming overwhelming. You mentioned a stat there. Was it 3,000 bits of information the average American gets on a daily basis, right? That's just outrageous. One of the questions that has been highly upvoted here is by Michael, and he says, I understood people buy the message they believe in. So your why is what you need to communicate. Agree, or is it too complicated?
Well, when you talk about your why, what you're really talking about, when people say, Simon Sinek and these people who really believe that we've got to find our why, I agree with that. I think that's really good advice. What the why is, it comes in the stakes of your story. We should do this because if we do it, people will be able to live this life. And if we don't, they will be able to, they won't. So, the why of my framework is that if people engage my framework, their messaging will go further and cost them less money. If they don't, they will waste that money and they will not be able to engage customers and change their lives. So that's the why when we're talking about our why. So I would say communicating your why is one of many parts of a narrative framework. It's not the most important part. They're all very important. They have to go together. But your why is just one part of that framework, and that comes in the stakes. Because if we do this, people will have a good life. And if we don't do this, people will not have a good life.
Absolutely. And I want to say briefly again, guys, thank you so much for all the engagements in the chat and in the Q&A. I saw that some of you have actually started to share your websites and ask if you could get reviews with people live here on the Masterclass. I think that's a tremendous idea. And to use each other like that, that's absolutely fantastic. Donald, obviously, COVID, we just mentioned it, the puppy is here, crazy things are going on. We're all digital, virtual, and so forth. What do you see as sort of the biggest shift in terms of marketing initiatives here in 2020? Because I assume that telling a clear story is always what you should do, whether it's virtual or non-virtual and so forth. But have you seen any other initiatives that the crazy world that we're currently living in, that some of the more successful marketeers are doing some maybe secret tips or initiatives that you're seeing. This is on the come up. This is what all the successful brands or so are doing.
Well, communication is critical in a time like this. When COVID hit here in the United States, it was in March. And I think Italy was struggling and Spain was struggling before us. So you guys really heard about it before, or you felt the impact maybe a week or two or a few weeks before we did. 80% of my business relies on people getting on airplanes, flying to Nashville, Tennessee, and sitting in a room and attending a 2-day workshop. 80%. Also people coming here and being certified as business coaches. That's what I do. So I have a staff of 25 people that I thought, this is not going to be good. This is going to be really bad. I got all 25 of my people together and I said, we're going to ask one question going into this. The question is this: what does this make possible that was never possible before? That's the only question we're going to ask. What does this make possible that was never possible before? And we spent a couple hours having a really heartfelt conversation. One of my team members said, Don, we have been asked for years to live stream our workshop, to do what you're doing. We've been asked for years to do that. We've been asked for years for you to talk about how to write a book. We've been asked for years for you to share your day planner that you created yourself that has allowed you to get so much done. Let's do those things on the internet. So we adapted, we shifted very quickly within 2 weeks. And our company has seen about a 25% increase in revenue and about a 30% increase in profit. And we hired 4 more people during COVID. The key was communicate, communicate, communicate. Almost every day at the beginning of the pandemic, I was sending out messages on my Instagram. I'm at Donald Miller, if you want to follow me on Instagram, about sharing with business leaders. You've got to communicate to your people. You've got to talk to them. Don't go quiet. Adapt, change. There's an opportunity for you here. So the 2 things that you want to do in your communication are, and you probably guessed them from my presentation, empathy and authority. Now, here's what happened in the pandemic, and it's still happening. All of the problems changed. We used to struggle with the problem of this, but in the pandemic, the problem shifted and changed. And now you're talking about the old problems, and everybody on the planet has new problems. For instance, I have a friend who is a plastic surgeon. So if you're a plastic surgeon during a global virus pandemic, you're not going to do much business. And he said, what does this make possible? He sent out a message to his community on social media and through email saying, look, you're bored. You've watched all the Netflix shows. You've watched all the movies. You're tired of being at home. You're tired of feeling like a slouch. Why not prepare for the pandemic to end and look as good as you possibly can? You can have a free consultation with one of our doctors. We will Zoom call you in. Yeah. We will talk about what's necessary. And he did so many of those Zoom calls that he filled up his surgical schedule for the next 18 months. Wow. That's adaptation. But what it is, what did he do? He identified a pain point that, by the way, had nothing to do with plastic surgery. You're bored because you're tired of watching Netflix. Why don't you do something for yourself and talk to one of our doctors? He adapted the pain point of his messaging to fit the pandemic, and he increased in business. So a couple things: over communicate, identify the new pain points that you offer help in, and then go ahead and ask for people to sign up for your product or service, and I think it will be helpful to you.
Well, I can at least for one very much relate to that. I mean, we've grown the team ourselves with about 100% actually over since COVID broke out, right? And I think we would never have done these masterclasses if we hadn't postponed the conference in the first place. And now we've gotten a touch point that is much closer with our community. whether it's speakers, whether it's business leaders and so forth, and just to see how we can follow that. That is absolutely amazing. Before going into this last part here, Donald, which is the very last part of the masterclass, our famous lightning round, a couple of quick top of the mind questions to have a little fun here. If you were to sort of sum up, what would be the 3 things that people should take away from this one?
Yeah, well, the first one is clarity is going to win the day. Communicate clearly. Communicate clearly. Answer those 3 questions. What do you offer? How will it make my life better? And what do I need to do to buy it? If you answer those 3 questions, you're going to win. The second is, I'm going to repeat it for the 3rd time because I want everybody to remember, empathy. Understand your stakeholders' pain. Understand your audience's pain and really genuinely open your heart up to care about them. And then 3rd, competency. Be the guide. Demonstrate that you are the one who can help the hero win the day.
That is my definition of so-called actionable insights, meaning something that you can directly take with you, implement in your business or team, whatever it is, the very next day, and then increase value. I mean, what more can you ask for, right? Donald, we only have about 3 minutes or so left here. So I want to briefly say thank you to all the people who have made use of the ticket offer. It will be live here still while we do this lightning round. But I think without further ado, Donald, are you ready for some quick top of the mind questions?
I love it.
Amazing. All right. So the first one will come up here on the slides, which is, what is the best advice that you have ever given?
The best advice that I've ever been given is to surround myself with the people who I want to be like. Yeah. The best advice I've ever been given. And I've stuck to that for about 15 years, and it's made all the difference. My entire staff, I have a staff of people I want to be like. And if I don't want to be like you, then you're not going to work here because we've got to spend time together. My wife is somebody who I aspire to be like. She's an amazing, strong, intelligent woman, and I'm honored to spend any minute I can with her, and grateful that I get to. But we can read a lot of books and hear a lot of lectures, but ultimately it's the people who you're surrounding yourself with that are going to dictate the quality of your life.
Absolutely. Well, I think it must be a pleasure working on that team. I guess communication ethics will be very clear. I hope.
We hope too.
The second thing is, what is the greatest purchase that you have made under $200?
What a fun question. The greatest purchase that I have made under $200. Gosh. It's a tool that I use in my life a lot is an actual day planner that I made myself. So I would say whatever it cost me to print that thing, I have a day planner that I fill out every day, and it keeps me on track and keeps me productive, and also forces me to rest when I need to rest because I'm not good at that. But it would be that day planner. I wish it was some gadget that you could get for yourself. Yeah. Actually, I'm teaching a course on it in November. So follow me on Instagram and you'll find out about that. And it's free. It's going to be free for you. But that would be the thing that I think is the biggest thing. I wish it was some fun misting fan that shoots water in your face and blows whatever, but I don't have one of those.
we might have to help you stream that live session there and get it on the platform.
I would love it. I would love it.
I love that question because I'm telling you, from Ariana Huffington to John Cleese, whatever person we're welcoming, the answer is always different. There's never been one of the same. Whether it's a bottle of vodka with some guys who we once welcomed, a philosopher that was the most unexpected answer ever, to Robert Greene, who had like a yoga pillow or something that helped him sit better or something. It's the best answers you get. All right. Great. Quickly moving on to the third question here, which is, what person inspires you the most at the moment? So not necessarily all time.
Oh, what person inspires me most at the moment? There's a gentleman named John Burke. At the moment, I'm reading his book. John Burke is the CEO of Trek Bicycles. It's a $1 billion bicycle company. And John played with the idea of running for president of the United States as an independent. And he did an enormous amount of research, and he came up with a playbook, a plan that he would execute if he happened to be elected president as an independent, which is nearly an impossible task. He did enough research that he decided not to do it, but he released his playbook and his plan in the form of a book. It's called 2020 Presidential Playbook. I think me and 3 other people have read it. But it's neck deep in policy about nuclear weapons and budgets and, that sort of stuff. But I found it fascinating. And I just think it's inspiring that somebody would love our country enough to identify that our problem is not Republicans or Democrats. It's that Republicans and Democrats fight with each other.
Yeah.
And they're wasting all of our tax dollars, and they're making us an embarrassment on the global stage. And an independent candidate, I think, could be a solution to some of that. And so John inspires me.
That's a great answer. Great answer. The fourth and last question here is coming up right there, I believe. Your best routine or hobby during COVID-19?
Best routine, I would say again, it's filling out that planner in the morning. But let me tell you what that's really about.
Yeah.
Part of that planner is a life plan. And that life plan is you're guided through a process where you actually write your own obituary. Isn't that weird? You write the obituary that you think would be released on the day that you die. And it chronicles your accomplishments. It lists your loved ones. It says this is what this person's life was really about. And I wrote my obituary as though I were already in my 80s and had passed away. And there are some significant accomplishments on there and some significant reminders to be good to my wife and maintain a close relationship with her. It sums up my life. And I probably sit down and read that obituary, as morbid as it sounds. I read it 3 to 4 times a week. And I do that because every time I do it, it reminds me what my story needs to be. And it reminds me how I need to live and what I need to work on and the relationships that I need to go deeper with. It's a very sobering and centering exercise. From my obituary, I then read a 10-year plan, a 5-year plan, a 1-year plan, and then a list of my goals. That process takes about 10 minutes to read all of that. But I read that 3 to 4 times a week. And so I never really forget what my story is about or where this story is going or what I need to do to make the story happen.
I think there's some stuff to think about there. And I would have wished that we had more time, Donald, and I will try my very best, if circumstances allows for it, to hopefully have you join us at President Summit at one point, if not June, then some other point. It was certainly a pleasure. I've taken many notes myself. I know a lot of my friends in the marketing community was listening in here, so I hope that they have been enriched as well. At least I want to say thank you so much. If there's ever anything I can do, please just reach out to me. Otherwise, I'll stay on for a couple of minutes. We've received a lot of practical questions, so I want to bother your time with that, but I'll stay on and hopefully try to communicate it as clearly as possible.
Well, thank you so much. It's been an honor to be with you.
Absolutely. Donald, I hope that we can stay in touch, and otherwise, please stay safe.
Thank you so much.